Young people who stand to inherit the effects of climate change made their voices heard at an event hosted by BUI. The annual Youth Climate Summit sparked encouraging conversations about what all of us can do to help. And one of the participants who caught our eye was Scarlett Westbrook, a journalist and activist who at the age of 13 was the youngest person in the world to have an A-level in government and politics. Scarlett is the head of political engagement at the Teach the Future campaign. Here she explains how the campaign came to fruition.
When I was 15 years old, I had spent a few years organising climate strikes in the UK, and I had just entered the last year of secondary school for me, which is when I'd be doing my end of high school exams. I'd taken all of the subjects related to climate change, geography, chemistry, physics, but I learnt nothing about climate change apart from the fact that it has many benefits for the UK, which we know isn't entirely true. So I decided to set up a campaign with my friend Joe called Teach the Future to change this, to make sure that every student has education on the climate crisis, because we're all going to be affected by it. And we realised that not only did we have to change the education system, but we had to change the way teachers were being trained, because in the research we did, we found that over 70% of teachers said that they hadn't been taught about climate change, about how to teach climate change. So we set up the campaign Teach the Teacher to address that, and Teach the Future to address it at a policy level. If we inform the next generation and young people, we will give them the tools to be able to lobby the government, to put pressure on the government and make sure that they act, because they're accountable to us.
Scarlett also talked about the dangers of climate change and the potential solutions to the crisis.
We've seen the Pakistan floods recently, where over a third of the country has been essentially destroyed. We're seeing rising carbon emissions. So the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has said that if we don't limit global heating to 2 degrees by 2030, or past a point at which we can't stop climate change from happening. However, and we are on the track to that, to rising by 2 degrees. However, that doesn't mean that it's a completely irreversible position. We can still do many, many things, but we can make a choice to make those effects as small as possible. I think there's quite a few things individuals can do. The first one is using their power to vote for politicians who will put the climate first. There's also things like limiting your use of single-use plastics, especially in somewhere like Bermuda, where you have the ocean right at your doorstep. I don't think there'll ever be a point of no return, because there'll always be things we can do to mitigate the impact. It's true that we will be experiencing inevitable impacts of the climate crisis.
Kendall Trott speaking there with Scarlett Westbrook. A popular holiday market has returned.